Okay, now we're going to move to the final item on the departmental reports. We have item number 5, 4 deficient street facilities, and I'll let Mrs. Gomez take the floor.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Paz Gomez. I'm the Deputy City Manager for Public Works, and joining me will be Tom Frank, the Transportation Director, as well as Hossein Ajide, our Engineering Manager.
Can everyone see the screen?
Yes.
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 Perfect.
So as background, as you may recall, back in July of 2019, staff had presented to City Council 8 deficient street facilities as part of the FY 2017-18 Growth Management Plan, or the GMP monitoring program. At that time, City Council referred back to staff to come back with additional options. On December 17th of 2019, staff returned to City Council to present on the first 4 deficient street facilities, and City Council determined that all 4 street facilities were deficient and 3 were exempted, and then there was 1 that will be resolved by a capital improvement program project upon its completion. On March 2nd of 2020, staff presented on the second 4 deficient street facilities to the Traffic and Mobility Commission. And at that time, we had requested that the second 4 deficient street facilities, which were around the Local Facilities Management Zone 15, be deemed deficient, built out, and exempt. And we had quite a bit of discussions on it, as you may recall. And at that time, the vote was 3-3, not in support of the staff's recommendation, with Commissioner Linke absent at that time. The commission further voted unanimously that Chair Gokin would come to the March 24, 2020 City Council meeting to make remarks with regards to the unnumbered CIP, which is to construct a 3rd lane from Sunny Creek Road to Jacks Bar Drive on El Camino Real, as well as the College Boulevard Extension project. And we are here to continue because the meeting will now be on May 5th, and we have this opportunity to present more information. With that, I will turn it over to Mr. Ajide.
Thank you. This is Hossein Ajide again. As you probably recall from last month's presentation, annual monitoring and reporting is one of the key elements of growth management plan. As Ms. Gomez mentioned, back in December, staff presented to the commission and later to the City Council on the first 4 deficient street facilities as part of fiscal year 17-18 growth management plan report. And we are here this evening to present on the second 4 deficient street facilities and measures to address the deficiencies. And those 4 deficient street facilities are: number 1, southbound El Camino Real from Cannon Road to College Boulevard; 2, northbound El Camino Real from College Boulevard to Cannon Road; number 3, eastbound Cannon Road from El Camino Real to College Boulevard; and 4, westbound Cannon Road from College Boulevard to El Camino Real. So what is the performance standard that we are going to evaluate our street facilities based on? As part of 2015 updates to the general plan, the following performance standard was adopted: implement a comprehensive livable network that serves all users, including vehicles, pedestrian, bicycle, and public transit modes of transportation. Performance standard for vehicle traffic is level of service LOS D or better, and this standard applies to freeways, arterial connectors, and industrial streets. Maintain level of service D or better for all modes that are subject to multimodal level of service standard as identified in Table 3-1 of the General Plan Mobility Element, excluding level of service exempt intersection and streets approved by the City Council. And this is per Mobility Element Policy 3-P4. And for any of the street facilities performance standard is not met, that facility is deemed deficient. But what happens if performance standards are not met? Carlsbad Municipal Code CMC section 2190130C states that if city manager identifies facilities to be deficient, he or she immediately reports the deficiency to the city council. If the city council determines that deficiencies exist, the city council adopts an arrangement guaranteeing a feasible project that will achieve performance standard, or the city council determines the street facility is built out and exempt from level of service D standard if no project exists to achieve performance standard. In that case, TDM and TSM measures are required. Otherwise, no further building or development permits shall be issued within affected zone until performance standard is met or an arrangement guaranteeing a feasible project is adopted by the City Council. So, what are the exemption criteria? The General Plan Mobility Element Policy 3-P9 states, in order to exempt vehicle mode of travel from level of service standard, the intersection or street segment must be identified as built out by the City Council because one or more of the following criteria apply. Obtaining the necessary right-of-way is not feasible, or the proposed improvements to fully address the deficiencies would have significant impact on the environment, or the proposed improvements would result in unacceptable impacts to the other community values or general plan policies, or the proposed improvements would require more than 3 through travel lanes in each direction. Also, General Plan Mobility Element Policy 3-P9 states that develop and maintain a list of level of service exempt street facilities approved by the City Council. For exempted street facilities, City will not implement improvement to maintain level of service standard if such improvements are beyond what is identified as appropriate at build out of the general plan. In case of street facilities where vehicle mode of travel is exempt from level of service standard, other non-vehicle capacity building improvements will be required to improve mobility through implementation of transportation demand and transportation system management, TDM, TSM measures, and or to implement livable street goals and policies of the mobility element. And with that, I turn it back over to Ms. Gomez.
So then the question is, does a project exist to achieve the LOSD? And this was discussed at our previous meeting. So technically the answer is yes. The College Boulevard Extension Project exists in the general plan, which could achieve LOSD. But the College Boulevard Extension Project, as it currently exists, is not feasible. It is not feasible based on the current City Council direction. So the current City Council direction is provided to staff based on 2 documents, what we call the Local Facilities Management Zone 15 Plan and the Citywide Facilities and Improvements Plan, in which staff is directed that private development is obligated to construct a College Boulevard extension, but only to 2 lanes. It includes grading to 4 lanes, however, only constructing 2 lanes. As you may be aware, private development has traditionally been obligated to provide the funding for these infrastructure that built our network. So staff met with the property owners in October of 2019 to determine what is going to occur. The private development at that time indicated that they were not going to be contributing to construct for the College Boulevard at that time because they were not planning on developing their respective properties. So it was determined that constructing College Boulevard extension was infeasible for the foreseeable future. So normally, what the city would do is state that we would not issue any building or development permits until such time that the developers collectively would present a plan guaranteeing the construction of that project, in this case, the College Boulevard extension, and is adopted by City Council. Senate Bill 330, the Housing Crisis Act of 2019, which became effective on January 1st of 2020, prohibited such a moratorium. As you may recall, on January 21st of 2020, our city attorney and the external counsel provided an informational brief to City Council, Planning Commission, Traffic and Mobility Commission, Housing Commission, and Housing Element Advisory Committee. At that time, the nuances of the Senate Bill 330 and its impact on the city of Carlsbad, in particular, with regards to moratorium and dwelling unit caps, were discussed. On February 6th of 2020, staff went up to Sacramento to meet with state housing and community development staff, who reinforced that through Senate Bill 330, the moratorium and dwelling unit caps that we have utilized here in the city of Carlsbad will not be authorized. On February 27th of 2020, the city attorney sent a letter to HCD asking them to prepare a response. They were aware of this particular project and our presentation to City Council, and we're preparing a letter to respond back to us. Of course, then circumstances occurred such that COVID-19 occurred, and so we have not yet received a written response from HCD. So just to give everybody reoriented, this is El Camino Real at Cannon Road, there, circle to the left, that we had just discussed a project on. And then next slide is El Camino Real at College Boulevard, just to show that down at the bottom part, the area where it shows the yellow is the El Camino Real widening from Jack's Bar to Sunny Creek Food. And then the area with a hashed yellow line is the College Boulevard extension that we have been discussing. And with that, I will be turning it back to Mr. Ajide. Continue.
Thank you. So, like Ms. Gomez mentioned, the first deficient street facility that we're going to discuss is southbound ECR from Cannon to College Boulevard, as it's shown in this aerial view and depicted by the red arrow. Again, like I mentioned in the previous presentation, the north arrow is pointing towards top of the screen, is actually showing the true north direction. And generally understood that ECR is a north-south corridor, but in this part of the city, it meanders. So northbound ECR is actually going towards west, and southbound ECR going towards east. So one of the projects that the staff has identified that will improve pedestrian and bicycle modes of transportation is for ECR and College Boulevard intersection. This project will remove the refugee island and add a dedicated right turn onto College. It will upgrade curb ramps to current ADA standards, and it will restripe existing roads to create improved bike lanes on both northbound and southbound El Camino Real. It also modifies basically traffic light up, modifies the traffic lights and also includes enhanced landscape. So for this project, staff requests exemption per mobility element policy 3-P9D, and the reason is that in order to fully address the deficiency through road widening or road improvement, more than 3 through lanes would be required, and that would be inconsistent with the mobility element. So Capital Improvement Program CIP project 6071, as I just mentioned, with the cost estimate approximately $1 million, will improve the traffic circulation. Will improve the pedestrian and bicycle modes of mobility, but the proposed project is not expected to meet level of service standards. In the spring 2020, staff anticipates that this project will be presented to the City Council for approval of plans and a specification and authorization for advertisement for construction bids. Second deficient street facility would be northbound ECR from College Boulevard to Cannon Road, as it's shown in this aerial view and identified by the red arrow. Again, same story with the north arrow direction. For this project, staff requests exemption per mobility element policy 3-P9D, similar to southbound, in order to fully address the deficiency through road improvement. More than 3 through lanes would be required. Currently, portion of ECR have 2 lanes, and with the CIP project that I'm going to mention in a minute, it will be up to ultimate condition with 2 lanes. However, upon construction of those CIP, still the deficiency will exist. One of those projects is CIP project 6042-6056 with the cost estimate of $3.5 million. And we just had a presentation on it. It's at the intersection of ECR and Cannon. It will improve traffic circulation, but the improvement is not expected to meet level of service performance standard. As mentioned in previous presentation, the staff anticipates that in fall 2021, the project will be presented to the City Council for approval of plans, specification, and authorization for advertisement for construction bids. The second project in that area is CIP project number 6094. As Ms. Gomez mentioned, back in March, this project was unnumbered. Now we have a CIP project number for that. Approximate cost estimate for that project is $3.5 to $4 million. Please note that this is a rough estimate because we haven't started preliminary engineering. So once we start preliminary engineering, that number may change. This project widen northbound ECR from Sonic Creek Road to Jackspar Drive. Similar to the previous project, will improve traffic circulation, but this project is not expected to meet the level of service performance standard. Currently, this project is programmed for fiscal year 2025 through 2029. If expedited by the City Council, staff will reschedule this project for fiscal year 2021 and will return with proposed funding sources. Please note, Prop H requirements will apply if more than $1 million from the city's general funds are utilized for this project. CIP project number 6042-6056, we just talked about it. It's basically improves both sides of ECR bridge over Agua Hedionda Creek by constructing a separate pedestrian bridge and widening a sidewalk on the south side of the bridge. Phase 2 of the project, like we discussed, will realign the median in order to fit 3 through lanes in northbound direction, 1 dedicated left turn lane and 1 dedicated right turn lane, and also a bike lane in northbound, or in this case, if you're looking west, you can see this basically a picture that how it looks upon construction of the CIP projects. And this aerial view shows basically the project location for CIP project 6094 for ECR widening from Sunny Creek Road to Jacks Park Drive. Third, deficient street facilities would be eastbound Cannon Road from ECR to College Boulevard, as it's shown in this aerial view and depicted by the red arrow. And the fourth deficient street facility would be westbound Cannon Road from College Boulevard to ECR, as shown in this aerial view. For these 2 street facilities, staff requests an exemption per 2 mobility element criteria. First, staff requests exemption per mobility element policy 3P9A because obtaining necessary right-of-ways are not feasible. And the reason is any road improvement in order to fully address the deficiency will encroach into open space near ECR and Cannon Road intersection. It will also encroach into road setback of adjacent residential community. Most areas and parcels in that area are privately owned. And also trail easement along south side of Cannon Road creates another restriction for any road improvements. And the other criterion per mobility element is mobility element policy 3-P9C, unacceptable impacts to the community values and general plan policies. And the impacted community values and general plan policies could include community vision core values of walking, biking, public transportation, and connectivity, community vision core value of open space and natural environment, mobility element goal 3-G6, protect and enhance visual, environmental, and historical characteristics of Carlsbad through sensitive planning and design of scenic transportation corridors. Recommend action to the City Council would be that the City Council adopt the resolution to A, determine 4 street facilities are deficient, B, determine these 4 street facilities are built out and exempt, C, expedite CIP project number 6094, widening northbound ECR from Sunny Creek Road to Jacks Park Drive by proposing different funding sources. Again, Prop H requirements will apply if we use more than $1 million from the city's general fund for this project. With that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Frank.
Great, thank you, Mr. Ajide. It's my pleasure to present the portion of the presentation regarding the College Boulevard Gap Closure Project. And the graphic in front of you shows the existing conditions. Just to get your orientation, north is shown by the north arrow in the lower right-hand corner, and north is straight up. And the ultimate alignment is shown by the blue line going from the existing College Boulevard at Sunny Creek Road up to the intersection at Cannon Road and College Boulevard in the upper left-hand corner of your screen. Next slide. So the College Boulevard Extension Project consists of full-width grading for the road, paved travel lanes, and sidewalks. There's a 2-lane option and a 4-lane option of vehicular travel lanes. It includes medians and median landscaping, a bridge over Agua Hedionda Creek, underground utilities including potable water lines, sewer and storm drain, intersection control, and street lights. As Ms. Gomez referred to, Per City Council direction through the Local Facilities Management Zone 15 plan and the Citywide Facilities and Improvement Plan, the private development is obligated to fund the College Boulevard extension for full width grading to accommodate 4 lanes, but only constructing 2 vehicular travel lanes, 1 in each direction. The planned 2-lane road extension has no additional capacity for development, and that is explained on page 11 of the traffic study, which is Exhibit 8 of your staff report. The corridor traffic study, some of the key highlights is it recognizes that the project is in the general plan under the mobility element. With the extension, the existing vehicular trips will be redistributed. The extension will provide access to the parcels within Zone 15 of the planning area. There are 2 new future streets within that area, so there'll be 2 new intersections within the zone. And since College Boulevard does not exist to date, the peak directional volume thresholds were established from the segment to the north of the project, which is on College Boulevard between College Village Drive and Cannon Road. Also, the reassignment of the existing trips regarding the projected volumes of the extension. The planned 2-lane option with signals is operating at capacity in the southbound direction in the AM peak and well over capacity in the northbound direction in PM. Therefore, no additional capacity would be included for development. But on the 4-lane, associated with the 4-lane roadway option, there would be additional capacity in both directions in the AM and PM peak hours. Deficiencies have been ameliorated with the reassignment of the existing trips to the extension. And when built, the roadway will have positive effects on the surrounding street segments, specifically on El Camino Real and Cannon Road. So regarding the analysis with the built-out conditions in the Zone 15, the 2-lane option with signals will not be adequate to serve the anticipated built-out traffic volumes for the zone. The 2-lane option is not considered viable with Zone 15 built-out conditions for the intersection volumes. The 4-lane option is projected to operate at or over capacity in both the AM and the PM peak hours at build-out. And the study recommends an extension to be constructed with 4 lanes that will provide relief to the surrounding networks and specifically again to El Camino Real and Cannon Road, the segments which we've been discussing. So our recommendations, which are included in your staff report under items number 2 and 3. The first is provide direction on city-led financing program for the construction of College Boulevard extension or the 4-lane option. It currently has a cost estimate of approximately $30 million, preliminary design and engineering assessment costs of about $3 million, and inconsistent with Prop H requirements. If over $1 million of general funds are programmed for the project, it would have to go to a vote of the people. Our next recommendation is to provide direction on whether to amend the Local Facilities Management Zone 15 plan and the Citywide Facilities and Improvement Plan to amend the obligations of the private developments in the LFMZ 15 to fund the College Boulevard Extension project. And that would be the 4-lane option. And with that, I would also provide for funding for consultant assistance to help with those revisions. So with that, I'll turn it over to Ms. Gomez to talk about the financing options.
Thank you, Mr. Frank. So the Citywide Facilities and Improvement Plan, specifically Section 7, goes over different general financing options that are available to the city, including special assessment districts, a community facility district or parcel tax, a bridge and thoroughfare district, which was utilized, for example, for the Poinsettia Lane extension, or an enhanced infrastructure financing district. And then there are different types of debt financing tools. We could use municipal bonds, we can have loans, or we can even use private equity investment. And then there are different types of funding and revenue sources, such as general taxes, special tax and value capture options, user fees, and grants. And we also have the Regional Transportation Improvement Program, the RTIP, which is something that SANDAG administers on our behalf for the Transnet funds. By the end of this fiscal year, we anticipate that the city's share there at SANDAG will be $19.6 million. Currently, we have 27 CIP projects that are in the 2018 program. Of those 27, 20 of them are either partially or fully funded by Transnet in the future years. The College Boulevard Extension project is in the program, but it's defined only as the 2-lane version, which was estimated at $12 million. But there are no Transnet funds that are associated with it. Part of the reason why we include projects into the RTIP program is it makes those projects eligible for any state or federal funding that may be coming forward. On May 5th, we will be presenting to Council for their approval the update on the 2020 program of projects, which is a little bit different in that SANDAG gave additional guidance with regards to presentation of the RTIP this year. So in the CIP itself, there's approximately $1.8 million of developer funds that have been earmarked for the College Boulevard Extension project in the CIP. As you may recall, the terraces at Sunny Creek project, which is constructed there near the corner of El Camino Real and College Boulevard, contributed their share for the College Boulevard extension at that time. There will be no additional funds provided in the future. So next steps is we are planning to make this presentation to City Council now on May 5th. And as a reminder, this is the last of the FY 2017-18 GMP monitoring report, deficient facilities. And so in June, we will be moving forward with presenting to the Traffic and Mobility Commission on the 18-19 GMP monitoring report, and then subsequently presenting it to City Council. And so our recommended action to the Traffic and Mobility Commission is to support staff's recommendations. I do just want to add a little bit, and please forgive me if everyone is familiar with it, but we referred to Proposition H throughout the presentation, but the requirement is if there's $1 million, more than $1 million of general funds that's expended on any project, which includes the planning associated with a capital improvement project, that it needs to go to the vote of the people for that project. And so whenever we refer to Prop H being greater than $1 million of general funds, that is what we are referring to. And with that, we thank you, and we are available for any questions you may have.
Thank you so much for the presentation. We're going to go in order again. We're going to have Commissioner Perez.
No questions right now.
Okay. Commissioner Linke.
Thank you. So I, of course, submitted a substantial letter, and I know it's getting late, but I want people to hopefully bear with me here. I've got some more slides to show, and probably just a 5-minute summary of my letter. Is it possible to switch to sharing?
Who's doing the sharing from staff?
Yeah, Hussein, if you could drop your
Yes,
sharing.
let me get out then.
And then after he gets out, Commissioner Lenke, you can share your presentation slides.
Okay, thanks. But first, I want to thank staff for bringing this matter back to us and for making several changes that are good improvements. And I support several of those recommendations. The one thing I'm urging the commission to do is to show the quantitative data in the traffic study that was commissioned specifically to address these deficiencies. And so in my letter and in the slides, hopefully I'll be able to present those shortly here. I'm just showing a few of the pieces of data that I think the city council should see when they're making a data-driven decision. They need to see the data.
Do you still see my screen?
Yeah, look,
It's blocking me from sharing.
your other one regarding the phase 1 of El Camino Real bridge improvements at Cannon Road is up.
Okay.
It's your desktop, yeah.
Okay, now you're out. Good, thank you.
There you go. You're good, Steve.
Okay. All right.
If
So-
everyone- sorry, before you start, if everyone can mute their mic if you're not speaking or presenting, really appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. First, I want to remind everybody what our mission statement says. So we're committed, this is a quote, committed to using transparency, best practices, and a data-driven approach to support a safe, efficient, and forward-looking mobility system. So I think it's important that we present the quantitative data from the traffic study and then recommend that the projects, including the college extension, get done. And that's how we can achieve transparency and data-driven approach and make our mobility system more efficient. Because ignoring the data and just exempting these facilities does not meet that mission statement. So this first slide is the example of the current congestion on northbound El Camino Real over the course of the day. And the chart on the top shows you that over 10,000 vehicles are sitting in level of service F congestion over a 3-hour and 45-minute period in the afternoon. In the table below that, I've summarized all 4 facilities, showing that almost 20,000 vehicle trips per day are in congestion. And the next slide, the red bars here show the current deficiencies during the peak hours on all 4 deficient facilities. And then the adjacent green bars show the improvement that you get with the college extension and other projects that were discussed by redistributing the traffic and increasing the capacity. So the summary is that the streets go from being in the red bars from between 7 and 73% over the GMP limit to 24 to 51% under that limit. So it not only fixes the current problems, but it leaves a lot of capacity for future growth. And then finally here, the college extension is shown on the far right. The 2-lane configuration, as you can see, it's 3% above, that's 29 cars. And so while yes, it's technically over the capacity, it is barely over capacity at 2 lanes. And I provided some evidence, which I won't go into right now in my letter, that 2-lane capacity of 880 cars is a bit overstated and probably or understated, and it's higher than that, and we would be under capacity. And then with a 4-lane is shown with the dotted line at 1,760, clearly college extension is way under that. Right, and then this is the text from the conclusion. I won't read it, but basically it says that the college extension is an extremely valuable connection. So this traffic study was done with the goal of providing options to the city council, but I'm a little disappointed that it's not being presented to the city council. So I'm recommending that we, as a commission, provide this type of data so that the city council can make a data-driven decision. I also think that we should provide the example of Palomar Airport Road between El Camino Real to the East City limit, which by my reading of the local plans shows that the city paid for that project up front. It's a major project. And then as development came in, it paid for it, reimbursed the city after the fact. And that's because of the developers here are refusing to pay for decades to get this done. I think that's the only way to accomplish it. Okay. Now, about the proposed exemptions. This is staff's previous legal analysis that they presented on the first 4 deficiencies in December. It indicates that when improvement projects exist to achieve the performance standard, then exemptions are not an option. The college extension would make the deficient facilities all meet their standard. So my argument is that no further discussion of exemptions at this point is necessary. There can be, they cited a lot of reasons why we can do it under the mobility plan, but the growth management plan says that they're not an option. So we shouldn't even be discussing whether it's 2 lanes or 3 lanes. There's a project that fixes it, so we shouldn't be discussing exemption. What the general plan does say, though, is that once an exemption is in place, the city will not implement improvements to maintain the LLS standard. It doesn't say the city has an option not to do them. It says it will not do them. So once you put the exemption in, you're unnecessarily eliminating one of the most effective tools in the toolbox to meet a standard. And TDM and TSM are fractions of that. Okay, next point is that these facilities actually started failing back in 2010, which I showed in my letter. But that was masked by the monitoring program that vastly underreported the congestion. And I raised this issue back in 2011, but was ignored. So developments across several zones were allowed to keep adding traffic to these streets for this past 9+ years. And it's probably too late to go back and have them pay for it. But as more developments in the entire area within and without of Zone 15 continue to add traffic, they should be required to pay their fair shares for the college extension, like maybe through a traffic impact fee program. 3 of the 4 facilities that are being asked to exempt are not even in Zone 15. They're in other zones. And there's enough traffic from all those other zones that you can see basically fill up the first 2 lanes. So why is Zone 15 the only one being responsible for pay for it? Okay, staff has also raised the SB 330 situation. It only applies to residential developments, not commercial developments, but accepting the reality that putting in a development moratorium, then the only remaining action available for the city to do is to develop its own financial plan, ideally with the requirement that all the area developers, both inside and outside of Zone 15, have to pay their fair share to pay back the city. And if the LFMZ plan through Zone 15 somehow makes the college extension infeasible in the mind of staff, then the plan for Zone 15 it's illegal. It's not consistent with the growth management plan, and it must be changed to address that. Okay, so that's my summary. I had at the beginning of my letter, I had some suggestions on recommending motions. When it's the appropriate time, I'd like to make a motion to adopt that recommendation, but in case anybody doesn't like parts of it, I can divide them up into separate parts so that if people don't agree with it. And of course, it's not just me here, everyone else can make their own motions too, but I really think that it's important that we move ahead with college at this point.
Okay, we'll take that in consideration. Let's have everybody comment, and then we'll come back for the motion.
Did you want me to respond to any of the comments from Commissioner Linke, or wait until the end?
It's up to you.
Okay, so a couple of items that Commissioner Linke had brought up was with regards to Palomar Airport Road. So what was referenced earlier is that there are different financing options, which include a reimbursement agreement, as you had mentioned for Palomar Airport Road. But it is still reimbursed by private development who is obligated to provide that. What we have right now with the LFNZ plan is that the obligation is only for the 2 lanes. What is being recommended is 4 lanes. So the other 2 lanes and construction of that would have to be funded by the city. It is not going to be an obligation on private development, so it would be different for how it was reimbursable in its entirety for Palomar Airport Road. Their portion, whenever it is that they construct, whether it's 30 years from now or 50 years, would be paid for that portion, but it would only be for the 2 lanes of College Boulevard, because that's how it is, unless it is amended by City Council in a financing plan that's approved. So I just wanted to address that specific, and that is one of the financing options. If City Council wishes to move forward with a 4-lane College Boulevard extension project, and the city leads that effort, at some point in time, it will not be fully financed. The 30 million will not be in its entirety a city funded project. It would be a combination, which would include private development, also contributing what their fair share is for the 2-lane. So just wanted to clarify that. And that is one of the options for reimbursement agreements. The other, with regards to exemptions, as was presented in December, we have CIP projects that we had asked City Council to expedite, and still the roadway, at least the one that's the southbound Melrose Drive, was still exempted. Upon completion of that project, that road improvement is still going to continue, which is still the case here, the CIP 6094, which is the El Camino Real from Jack's Bar to Sunny Creek, that will still move forward. The current plan or City Council direction is for it to be in its entirety planned and constructed by private development. And that's the reason why we're going back and asking them to give us direction as staff, because we can only recommend recommendations based on current or prior City Council direction. And so with that, it ties our hands so that the only avenue that we have available really is, what can we do? If it's deficient, then we determine that it's built out or exempt if it falls under one of the 4 criteria that Mr. Ajide had presented. And those 4 facilities, again, setting aside the College Boulevard Extension project, because there's no, in the foreseeable future, it isn't feasible. The developers have tried on numerous occasions, but could not bring it to the finish line to deliver that project, unlike Poinsettia Lane, which when they were facing the possibility of a moratorium, they figured out a way forward to be able to construct that remaining gap. And then the last item is with regards to Zone 15. Yes, it used to be, and you had mentioned it as well in your letter, Commissioner Linke, is that there used to be a 20% contribution of the different zones. The other zones have already met their obligations. Zone 15 development has not. And so and their contribution is for the College Boulevard extension. It is not listed for the other zones. So I think I addressed most of the items that you had brought up.
If I may, there's one item that I'd like to elaborate on, if I could. One of the comments was just regarding the exemptions and the impact it would have on cities' future CIP projects. And Commissioner Linke, you had wrote that an exemption would further discourage the completion of projects. The general plan states that once an exemption is in place, the city will not implement improvements to maintain the level LOS standard, level of service standard. And what the general plan, actually the full thing, the full text which it includes, it says for LOS exempt street facilities, the city will not implement improvements to maintain the level of service standard outlined in policy 3P.4 if such improvements are beyond what is identified appropriate at build out of the general plan. So this College Boulevard extension project is actually included in the general plan, so that would not be the case. So I don't think that doing the exemptions would have a negative impact on future CIP projects for the city. So I just wanted to clarify that point.
Thank you.
Right.
Commissioner Linke.
So on that last point, we're really being asked to both exempt El Camino Real and Cannon and declare them as built out effectively.
Okay, it
And
seems like
so
we're having.
my concern, what?
Can
Sorry.
you hear me, Commissioner Linke? You're kind of breaking down, so
Can you hear me?
yes,
Can you hear me now?
yes.
Okay, so what we're being asked to do is effectively exempt, or asked to recommend that the city council exempt El Camino Real and Cannon Road, and simultaneously say that they're built out. And Mr. Ajay went into great detail about how El Camino Real is at 3 lanes. Cannon Road can't be widened beyond 2 lanes because of a bunch of other reasons. So to me, when it says if those streets are built out and they're exempt, then we will not do projects to improve it. College extension is a different story. I think there's different ways to interpret that. To me, the 2-lane college extension is the perfect thing for the city to fund, because Zone 15 isn't contributing any of the traffic that will go there. All that traffic that would go on those first 2 lanes is coming from outside of Zone 15. So if we build a 2-lane extension through there without any intersections, without the extra 2 lanes, it's up to Zone 15 then. If they want to develop there, they need to build the second batch of lanes to get through there. And as far as the projects with exemptions, the example of Melrose, yes, that was both exempted and funded to do a project, but those funds are coming from the city. So the city is paying to do that as a condition of the exemption simultaneously. In this case, if we exempt Cannon and El Camino Real now, but don't link that up with the college extension, then in the future, someone is going to argue, a developer is going to argue, well, you've exempted these areas. There's no responsibility now to fund any project to improve the situation as college. So I think these are different topics.
Correct. So just for clarification, if City Council gives the city staff direction that what is the preferred option, if you will, is to amend LFMZ 15 plan, amend the citywide facilities and improvements plan, construct a 4-lane College Boulevard extension, of which half of it would be contributed by private development. If we move forward and are directed to make those changes, then absolutely there will be no deficiencies, there will be no need for addressing the El Camino Real and the Cannon Road deficiencies, because they would be addressed. That would be the direction that staff would take, because that is now what City Council is telling us that they would like us to do. Now, if that is not what City Council directs us to do, the current direction stands, which is that at some point in time, private development will construct College Boulevard using private development funds. Right now, what they're telling us is it could be decades, if at all, that some of them may not construct it. And if that is the case, that they do not construct it, then it is deemed not feasible, which is where the criteria, as was explained, comes into play, because it won't happen for decades. And so the routes that are that the vehicles are using now will continue on. So that is basically where we're at. However, because it is in the LFNC 15 plan, to your point, Commissioner Linke, that is a requirement for the developers in moving forward, if they ever decide to develop.
Okay. I'm going to move on with Commissioner Pensier. Do you have any questions or comments?
I think you're on mute, Commissioner.
All right. The question I have is with respect to this Proposition 8. I think I heard you say that there's no way that you can even do the feasibility study without triggering Proposition 8. Is that correct?
I'm sorry. It's general funds. So if City Council directs us to move forward and say, come back with a financing plan for approximately $3 million to do the preliminary engineering and design to basically start heading down the road of the 4-lane College Boulevard extension. I had already mentioned we have $1.8 million for that project that has already been contributed by private development. So then we would look and say, are there other funds that are available that are non-general funds that could be utilized, perhaps redirected with City Council's approval, and say, can we come up with some additional funding that is not general funds? The estimate of $3 million is a swag, quite frankly. $30 million, which was based on $22 million that was done 5 years ago and escalated. So we don't have a legitimate estimate other than it's approximately going to be a few $1 million. So if that's the direction, then we would go back and then we would negotiate, we would go out with an RFP and find out it is going to cost us this much. And I'm making up the numbers, but let's say we have, for the sake of argument, $2.6 million that we were able to cobble that are non-general fund. And so, and it is $3 million and it's legitimate. So we have $400,000 that would get us to the 3 million. That is still less than the $1 million threshold. So now we've gotten to $3 million without having to go to a Proposition H vote. So those are things that can be done and discussed if council were to give us direction that this is what they want to do. They want to build a 4-lane College Boulevard extension. Part of it will be funded by the city and the rest of it would be by private development.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm going to move on to Commissioner Fowler. Do you have any comments or questions?
No, I don't.
Okay. Commissioner Hunter?
Yeah, a few things. First, an admin thing. When I was reading through all this stuff, particularly Appendix C, and we had northbound Cannon and eastbound El Camino Real, and it was driving me nuts because northbound ECR goes northwest for just a bit. You know, all the charts, I'm looking at College Boulevard westbound, and if we can just be a little consistent with what the flow is, it would make my life easier.
That's noted.
Not that your guys need to make my life easier, but a next step, I want to thank Paz and the staff for listening to what we said last time and actually moving forward on some things like the Sunny Creek to Jack's Bar portion, and actually taking a really good look at the College Boulevard. So I appreciate the effort that went into it, particularly when we're all virusing here. However, you guys all heard me talk extensively last time, and even with the changes, the exemption thing still doesn't sit right with me for a bunch of the reasons. I think we tried to pull some legal stuff out of, if nothing exists, well, it does exist, and the 3-lane thing. And I just think that we were reaching and trying to pull stuff up. The Cannon one, there's plenty of room on Cannon. Yeah, there's a pedestrian walkway there. Okay, move it. Not a big deal. So, the digging deep into the community beautification and stuff is a reason why we can't fix that. Just I don't buy most of that. So I'm still in the same position I was on the exemption thing, but I really do appreciate, particularly on the northbound, ECR changes to solve some of that problem and things. So I will stop there.
And just to address the general plan build out for Cannon Road is 2 lanes in each direction. And so that's just one of the items as far as the council goals and policies.
And I'm good with that. It was, we don't have the charts up there, so I won't reiterate it, but it was the same words they used last time about, we can't move trees. You can if you want to. But anyway.
Thank you, Commissioner Hunter. Vice Chair Johnson, do you have any comments?
Yes. Thank you for your presentation. It was much better tonight. I enjoyed it. I have to say I agree with Commissioner Linke. I have concerns about the college extension, and I understand that's where you're coming from. You don't want to give direction to the council. I totally understand that, but I'm also with Commissioner Hunter. I'm uneasy by handing out exemptions. I would rather recommend a solution to the problem. And that solution could be better presented with some of Commissioner Linke's statistics, and going with the proposal, this will ease and it won't have to be, quote, an exemption if you present it in the right manner. That's all.
Okay, thank you, Vice Chair Johnson. So with that said, I pretty much mirror what the commissioner said. I have the same feeling. I'm really excited, and I really, just like Commissioner Hunter said, I really appreciate all the hard work that staff has been putting into this and listening to us. And I feel like we're getting to a collaborative place. And I also appreciate all the hard work that the commissioners and all the education and information that they've been putting in. So I think that as a team, we're making a better Carlsbad, and that's should be the goal. So I know we have growing pains, but we're slowly getting there. So with that said, do we have a motion? Anyone would like to make a motion? Commissioner Linke.
So I don't know what the views of the rest of the commission are. I have the 4 separate portions of the motion. First one is to support sections 1A and 1C of staff's recommended actions. The second one is to present to the City Council the quantitative data and conclusion from the traffic study demonstrating the street projects fully resolve all the deficiencies with ample capacity for future growth. The third is to recommend that the City Council not exempt any of the facilities because the street projects allow them to achieve the required performance standard. And the fourth is to support sections 2 and 3 of staff's recommended actions with the further recommendation that the City Council direct staff to develop a city-led finance program to build a College Boulevard extension linked to a requirement that developments in all zones that add traffic to the area reimburse the city their fair share, citing the Palomar Airport Road example. So it's a big motion, but basically it supports most of staff's recommended actions, but it doesn't support the recommendation for exemptions, and then adds some additional recommendation about the college extension.
Since last time, Commissioner Hunter, yes.
If you're saying yes to me having the floor for a comment, I appreciate that, Chair. I clearly understand the recommendations you've presented, Commissioner Linke. I actually just wanted to make sure I clearly understand your recommendation which you called out as item number B, which is present to the City Council the quantitative data and conclusions from this traffic study. I believe we were trying to do that. Actually, we included the traffic study in the report. That's what our plan is. You basically have our draft staff report that we were presenting to the City Council. So in the staff report, we do mention all of the study information. We're providing the benefits that the college extension provides. So I guess I'm looking for a little bit of clarification what you mean by item number B.
So yeah, the clarification is just to show this, the graphs on the slides that I showed at the beginning, like the bar graphs showing what the before and after situation would be, and the histogram showing the example of what the before is on northbound El Camino Real, just as examples. The data that's in the staff report is not quantitative. It either passes or it fails. That's qualitative data, and you can't drive decisions based on, for example, you say, called the 2-lane college extension is over capacity. But when you look at the quantitative data, you see, well, it's 29 cars over capacity, what 3%, versus saving 20,000 vehicle trips from being stuck in traffic. So I just want the City Council, when they're making their decision on whether to fund the college extension, to have a fulsome understanding of the vast benefit that it would create. Now it's up to the City Council ultimately to decide, and I'll support that. If they decide they don't want to do it, that's up to them. But I think I want to show them the full benefit. So just
would
that's
that be something that staff can add in the presentation as from the commission? Because I know it's not your study and the information that you as staff providing.
So just for clarification, if I may, one of the things that, and the traffic engineers around me, please jump right in, that even in the little numbers, if it ends up, and my understanding is if it's at 2,900, for example, at level of service C, and you're right, it's only 29, it's just a little bit, but the minute it gets to 2929, it becomes failure. So it goes from C, which is still going, and becomes F, or failure. So perhaps if you can, maybe Doug, if you can explain a little bit about that with regards to that kind of information, that it's not the, oh, it's only a few vehicles. It's actually the definition of what makes it not meet the performance standard.
Yeah, if I could get it, yeah, there's no degradation past F. So once you're at F, you're at F. So you're there for 10 minutes or 20 minutes or an hour, it's still considered F. So I think the report shows that you're going to be there for maybe 15 minutes of F, and I think Steve's data shows that it's at level of service F for a longer duration. But in either case, I don't think the study was inaccurate to say that it would be expected to be deficient. I think it's it just, as you said, maybe qualitatively, it's saying what's deficient and what isn't. And in terms of GMP, that's the criteria, that's the big threshold.
Right, but the 29 cars over, it's just coincidental that the northbound El Camino Real is 29 cars over if you do just the widening. The college extension is 29 cars over its limit when you put in only 2 lanes. So let's not confuse those two 29 car things. The El Camino Real is fully resolved. It's not 29 cars over. It's 50% under its limit. It's 100 or 1,000 cars under the limit with the college extension. And that's the data I want the City Council to be able to see when they're making a decision. I don't see any reason why everything we give to them has to be qualitative. Let's let them see the quantitative data, what improvement is going to be seen.
I think if there was a question, when the college extension is built, the deficiencies are addressed. I think one of the points that Paz made earlier, if that wasn't clear, if College extension is built, the deficiencies are fully addressed. And then you have to decide how much more the difference between 2 lanes College extension is to 4 lanes. And that's where I think your point was, you know, at 2 lanes, we get right about it, that deficiency again, without any development being considered. So let's consider it to be a 4-lane project. So we don't just build 2 lanes and then once it's opening, we're already considering, well, shouldn't we build it to 4 lanes? If that helps clarify.
Well, if I might add, I think we all agree that with the College Boulevard extension, it fully resolves all the deficiencies with ample capacity for future growth. So we all agree upon that. I think what you're asking for, Commissioner Linke, is just the graphics which you provided, which show the traffic data versus just a description of it in a chart, because it's the same information. It's just how you present it.
Right.
So
instead of showing it goes from an LOSF to an LOSD, which is hard to visualize, just show the bar chart so they can see. That's the request in my recommendation B.
All right, great. Thanks for the clarification.
Okay, so is my understanding that Commissioner Linke, you're not fully approving on the 4-lane?
I think we should leave it up to the city council to decide whether they want to do, how they want to do it. That also goes for the Proposition H discussion we've had. It's really, for us as the traffic commission, I think it's up to staff and the city council to work out the financing. I think money can be reallocated from Transnet funds or gas tax funds. There's all kinds of options that are available, but the decision to go with 2 or 4 lanes or how to finance it, probably that's up to the city council. But if anyone else wants to make a recommendation on changing my motion to be more specific and say 2 lanes versus 4 lanes, I'm open to that.
So I remember last time Commissioner Hunter and Commissioner Perez, and I believe it was, yes, Vice Chair Johnson that voted against it. So with that said, are all 3 of you, other than Commissioner Linke, approving or in agreement with his version of the motion? Commissioner Hunter.
So first of all, I think somebody needs to second the motion so that we can have discussion on the motion. Because right now we got a motion on the table, which we haven't acted on. So I'm seconding the motion so we can discuss the motion. I
thought we are discussing the versions of the motion. We're not able to discuss different versions of motion.
Once a motion is made, an action needs to be taken on. It either needs to be voted on or tabled. So,
right, but Commissioner did not make a motion. He was discussing one of the versions of the motions that he.
I heard him make a motion. So yeah, maybe I didn't. And if he didn't,
my intent was to make the motion.
Pardon me?
My intent was to make the motion.
Right, but did you make the motion?
I don't think that there was a motion made. I thought Mr. Linke was just simply saying, if I was to make a motion, these are the 4 things that I would like to put in the motion, and then started to discuss those things.
Okay, we'll go with that. And then Chair, you asked a question. I still am of the same mind as I said in my discussion against the exemptions. I'm for several of the things that Commissioner Linke said. I'm not sure we ought to direct the council how to use what monies from where, because in your potential motion, you said use it just like we did on the Palomar Airport thing. Again, I would leave that up to them. I'm not sure exactly, you adopted, and I had to finally pull it back up, certain parts of the deal, so I'm not sure exactly what those are. So when you do make your motion, if you could be a little more, or just bring them out so that we all know what it is. But yeah, I would definitely support the not exemption portions.
The summary would be, as a motion, the summary would be that we support staff's recommendation for the extension paid by the city of $30 million, but we do not support the exemptions of the other 2 or 3 roads.
Well, I don't think we ought to tell them how to do their financing and such. That's, we support the extension, whether it's 2 or 4 and how they pay for it. That's
Right.
Paz's job.
Supporting the extension, right, okay.
May I clarify? So staff is not making that recommendation to City Council. What we are asking is for them to give us direction with regards to the way forward on College Boulevard. So it really is truly up to City Council to make the recommendation. So just to walk through what the staff's recommendations are, and what I heard from Commissioner Linke is 1A that he was referring to is that all 4 street facilities are deficient. And so I think that's what I'm hearing is that there is concurrence that that's 1A. 1B is that they are built out and exempt. And what I'm hearing is that that is not what the Traffic and Mobility Commission is supporting. And then the C portion is to expedite CIP number 6094, which is the El Camino Real construction from Sunny Creek to Jack's Bar Drive, which is the widening into the 3 lanes. So if I heard you correctly, Commissioner Linke, that was 1A and 1C that you were referring to that you would support. The number 2 and number 3, number 2 is the recommendation or the request for City Council to provide us direction with regards to the College Boulevard extension. And so the request is, do you want us to be leading this effort as the city and as part of it also contributing to that? Because right now it is only private development that would be contributing per the LFMZ 15 plan and the CFIP. So that's the number 2 that Commissioner Linke was referring to. And then if the direction from City Council is number 2, then the number 3 would be for them to also support then amending the LFMZ 15 plan, as well as the CFIP to state that it is no longer going to be a private development obligation for the 2-lane version of College Boulevard.
Yes.
So can I interrupt for a minute? Paz, I don't know if it's really appropriate for the Traffic and Mobility Commission to weigh in on number 2 and 3. I think really they should be weighing in on just 1, because 2 has to deal with city-led financing programs, which would be outside their purview, and 3 is the same thing, you know, amending the LFMZ 15, I don't think would necessarily need a recommendation from the Traffic and Mobility Commission. So maybe it would just simplify things to concentrate on just number 1.
Correct. And the last time, as you may recall, the discussion was about making comments to that effect about College Boulevard extension. And so that was because part of the presentation when staff presents on May 5th, there will be an opportunity. And again, this would be up to the commission to determine if it's Chair Gokin or someone else to present with regards to the outcome of this meeting. So if you would like to just vote on the staff recommendation of 1A, B, C, and you vote on 1 and C, it sounds like that was the motion. And then either make comments on 2 or 3 as you had previously discussed. Not necessarily a motion with regards to, it's not staff's recommendation that you vote on. Does that make sense? It was part of the information.
So do we have a motion?
May I make a comment?
Yes, please, Commissioner Fowler.
I think we need, first of all, before we slice and dice this, I think we got to vote on the complete recommendation of staff straight up. It might pass. So I would make that motion that we adopt the staff recommendations unmodified.
Okay, do I have a second? Commissioner Pensier, you would like to second Commissioner Fowler's motion? Okay. Nathan, would you like to take the vote?
Chair Gokin,
Nay.
Commissioner Johnson,
You're muted also, Johnny. Still muted.
No,
Sorry, was that a no?
no,
Okay. Commissioner Perez,
Nay.
Commissioner Hunter,
No.
Commissioner Pensieres,
I'll be different. Yes.
Commissioner Linky,
No.
and Commissioner Fowler.
Yes.
Please note that it Commissioners Fowler's recommendation motion did not pass if it failed 4-2.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion now.
Please,
5-2.
5-2. Yes.
So I'll slightly amend my motion. And then instead of reading through the staff thing, I think Ms. Gomez read it correctly. I move that we support staff's recommendations 1A and 1C, but reject 1B, and that we present to the City Council the quantitative data and conclusion from the traffic study, and recommend that the city direct staff to develop a city-led finance program to build the College Boulevard extension. And that's the end of my motion, but I want to clarify what the attorney, what Attorney Kemp said. I think it's within our lane, as it were, to recommend whether a street be built or not. It may be out of our lane to tell the city how to finance it, or whether it's 2 lanes or 4 lanes, but I'm just, in my motion is the recommendation that they explore with staff that building it.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, can we go for a vote? Please note that Commissioner Lincoln made a motion with Commissioner Hunter seconded. We can go for a vote, Nathan?
Yes, Chair Gokin,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
yes,
Commissioner Perez,
Yay.
Commissioner Hunter,
Yes.
Commissioner Pensieres,
No.
Commissioner Linky,
Yes.
and Commissioner Fowler.
No.
No.
Please note that it passed 5-2 with Commissioner Pensier and Commissioner Fowler voting against it.